Let's call this meeting of the Wayne County Commissioners to order. Hey, I kind of like that. It echoes.
Chime.
All right.
Added
Mr.
feature.
Cross.
We now have the joint ordinance in final form for the transfer of the remaining balances to jail bond fund.
Okay.
I will distribute three execution ordinance, joint ordinance number 2023-01. And again, just basically has the arm wrestling draw to which Mike and Brandon fought with the monies going into a common fund, 1136, I think is the fund number according to the auditor. But within that fund, there are two sub-accounts as indicated.
Okay.
Other than that, it's all the same. Essentially, the schedule shows the expenditures post-bond maturity. Steve's got kind of a summary of what the major projects that are represented on that printout of Schedule A constituted. Honestly, he takes care of himself, and he has a good filing system. I think that's fine. We don't need to have that part of it. Part of the
You have fireproof
ordinance.
filing cabinets? Okay. So we'll take this up at the workshop tonight.
I'm not going to be there, but there will be either you can execute it now or you can execute it then. I don't care. It's on the agenda
I'd say
for.
if it's a joint, let's just do it
We'll
tonight.
do it tonight and have.
It's on the agenda for tonight, so
Do it
just
tonight,
make
okay.
sure to take these three copies with you.
Okay, let's give these three copies to Bobby.
Yeah, don't put them in our hands.
Yeah.
Get that monkey off of my back. Thanks, Bobby.
No problem.
I've got a conflicting meeting that just came up tonight. I'm not going to be able to do that.
Okay.
That's all I've got right now.
We had discussed, and I think you drew up a draft, and I'm trying to remember whether we actually executed that, a letter to the health center notifying them that at the end of the 3 years of this current.
Basically, I mean, I indicated that it appeared that then this would be their notice, but it
Okay.
appeared that,
And did you, so we got that sent? Okay, so you handled that? Okay. And have we
I
heard
would
anything
still
in response or
suggest we do that again, maybe
periodically?
anniversary date of the lease each year,
Okay.
which is June, July.
So I guess in the lease, it probably says something about 6 months prior to the expiration of the lease, there has to be some provision for either going forward or ending it. So, but does this notice cover that, or is it?
I'd go back and read it. I don't know that was quite the intent. I think the
Right.
intent was
We
to
just wanted to let them know that,
give them a heads up, kind of, if you will, taking the proverbial high road with
okay.
the agency. It's not always been easy to work with.
And I just want to make sure that make sure we cover the base from a legal perspective, that whenever
do
that
that.
needs to be
And,
sent.
and I did coincidentally just mention it to Boston probably last month or something. And he
Okay,
confirmed that they were aware. I
Okay.
didn't push the issue any further.
great. It just came up in a conversation in the last week or so, and I wanted to make sure I remembered correctly. Nothing else from you, Ron?
Not right now.
Any questions for Ron?
I've got a claim I wanted to take a look at. We don't need to discuss. I just wanted
Okay,
some help with what this is.
Is it the,
We can talk about when we get to claims.
so Steve?
well, this is just my guess. I know what this is. This is just a advanced draw based on collections.
Oh, okay, okay.
any
The tax,
taxing
Yeah.
unit has the
it's a
right,
tax distribution,
has the
okay.
right to request an advance draw.
Okay,
I know Jamie did, and I got copied of it. She was concerned that they were fine, Mark, and
it was just sort of
Nancy.
out of step is all.
yeah, and
I think we've dealt with that.
the timing makes me think that's what it was, because that was the date they were gonna send it.
It is, because I had talked to Mark about it.
Okay, but it is out of kilter some.
Well, that
It's,
hadn't been the practice that
they haven't done it
soon
before.
after
Yeah,
mid-year settlement. I mean,
exactly, because it's 2 months after settlement, so.
So there wasn't a whole lot there, obviously.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I don't know what the deal is. I just,
But it's okay and.
Yeah, it's-
Yes, yes.
Okay.
and it represents it should represent no more than 95% of the monies collected, and will be a direct credit against the fall settlement.
Okay.
And as I was told, when they receive a request like that, they have 30 days.
They have 30 days
to respond, and if it goes beyond 30 days, then interest is.
Yeah, but that's just
Correct.
worms trying to figure,
Oh,
because you
yeah.
didn't
Exactly.
figure out what your effective interest rate was and your assets invested, allocate
So we
a
met,
portion of that.
we met the 30
We can
days.
avoid that.
We just
Oh,
closed by meeting the 30 days.
That was timely.
And it's,
Good,
it's
okay.
only money that has been collected, and so it's, it's a relatively easy
Okay.
task for them to identify.
And they tend to be more common in the first half of the year than they do in the second,
Yeah.
only because, at least with schools, they have their big May bubble in their payroll for teachers who take their end of year pay, then, and so, and people tend to sometimes pay their full year taxes. So
Spring is always low.
spring's usually the time you see those more frequently. But I don't know if Jamie's got some cash flow issues or not, or she just wanted to get the process
Tested.
tested.
Okay.
Now, if I'd known what interest rates were gonna be this year, I sure wouldn't have paid my fall.
Mr. Higginbotham.
All right, you have before you your project list, and not much change from last week. Now, the list that council will see tonight, it'll be a little more in depth because they haven't seen one for a couple of weeks. So one you get tonight will look different than this one, but this is the changes from last week. And again, on the courthouse exterior, talked to the contractor again, and they still anticipate that they're gonna finish this before winter, which again, I'll remind council that this money that we are committed to probably paid in this calendar year, as well as the courthouse bathroom. And down at the very bottom, that is the balance in the council's one-time fund is about $344,000. So I'll reemphasize that again tonight.
So we're still on track, about $1.5 million. Would need to be an additional appropriation, which is about what we had done at the end of last year in encumbrance, but the encumbrance didn't get carried through, so we're on track.
And then the technology area, you see that there's been an extra microphone installed, and actually Joe's here today to start to balance that. And also, TV is running off our XLR jacks now, so he's running off our microphones rather than his shotgun mic, so
We're off both,
we're off of both.
just to be safe. Can I back up to the jail window replacement?
Yeah.
Do we have any recent update?
I
Because
don't,
It was the spring, wasn't it, when they came in and measured the
it was
windows?
late spring. I'll have Dale follow up with that.
Okay. So it would be nice to know at least if they anticipate it being done this year so that we can.
Understand.
Okay.
I have a question. It may be too soon to know, but the window leak affecting EMA, will that be covered by you?
Yeah, we
You
have
think
fixed
it'll
that.
not be such a major expense?
Well, we
that it-
fixed it, and we put,
It's just caulking, right?
Yeah, we caulked all those windows up
All
on that
of them,
side.
okay,
We just did them all.
Okay.
But it hadn't rained, and so we used a hose on it. It hadn't leaked, so we'll wait for it rain. But
It
it's,
was just the
Until this morning.
sealant that did,
Until this morning.
it rained smart.
No, they used the hose this morning.
Oh,
It was-
okay.
It was leaking again this
Was it
morning.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were down there.
They found a spot higher up.
Okay.
So, I.
Hence the reason why he was on the ladder this morning.
Exactly.
Right.
But they're, the
It really
windows are
leaks.
50 years old and I can see how they need to be recaulked every 50 years or so.
I just want to say that while I was reticent about surrendering that carpet, the grip on that
Yeah.
Isn't that
flooring is
amazing?
excellent.
It really is.
And then Brad, I did follow up with Judge Drake to.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
Yeah, I did, and I haven't got a response from her, but I did follow up with an email to
Right.
her as the anticipated start date. IT has been working on a camera. They have a Wi-Fi issue, so this may end up being a hardwired camera as opposed to a Wi-Fi camera. IT's working on that as well.
Is that just because of the thickness of the walls over there?
Because where that camera would be sitting versus, and to where it's going to shoot
To the office, yeah, it would be a difference, I mean, through a
3 foot.
3-foot thick wall.
Yeah, 3-foot limestone wall or brick, so. But she has been made aware of the start date at this point.
I was gonna ask you, thank you.
And it's great to see product coming into the expo hall.
Yeah, and we've already had a claim voucher, and the way they do that, the product is delivered, they take a photograph of it because it's stored at their place, and so we pay for it, but we do have photographic
Proof that it's
proof
on,
that it's been delivered and it's on site.
It's not virtual delivery.
Right. And then I've got a second quote coming for the recorder's wall. The contractor was here Monday to look at that. We'll probably get a third quote as well. On September 26th, which is next Tuesday, SAS Security Automations will be here to look at our locks to see if we can, what it will take to go to a Prox locking system. And at first discussion, our current Prox system will work. It'll just tie into a lock that's compatible with the card reader.
And so it would, I assume, need to go through a computer somewhere.
You'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Well,
I
it
mean,
does already, anytime.
As
you
we said, it has to now
Yeah.
already.
because they
prox
get an
in.
alarm, right, when somebody comes in without using a prox on weekends or after hours.
Yeah, I guess my question is, why were the prox cards put there in the first place if they never were they ever used?
That's a long story. I'll share.
I don't wanna open it up with a big
Yeah.
can of worms, I'm they're there, they should be, to me, it seems like they should be compatible, and why they were never made.
Well, except that they're 20 years old, so.
With the system, when it was first put in before our upgrade, so we upgraded the cameras a couple years ago. We upgraded the prox card system. The only thing they were intended to do was to monitor who came in and out and when. That's what it was for. It's a log for who came in and when.
If you used the prox card,
If you used the prox card.
which nobody's gonna use if you don't need that to get access in.
Correct, and that's where it got to. And so we didn't do the locking system because at the time, the estimate was for all the locks where the prox card readers were. So if you entered there's prox readers coming into the commissioner's chambers. So if that lock was on a prox card reader, at that time, it was about $100,000 to install all the locks. So it was decided not to spend $100,000. So now we're looking at, exterior doors, not necessarily all interior doors, but exterior doors to be able to use the prox card to enter, which then cures the problem of, when we terminate somebody and there's extra keys out there, we can just simply change the prox number. So they'll be here Tuesday and we'll see where that goes.
And did you say you're getting a third bid for the recorder's office?
Steve, does this mean we all have to go find our 15, 20-year-old box cars?
No, you'll get a new.
If you can't find it, you
If we
get a
do
new
something,
one.
Okay.
you'll get a new.
I found mine was hanging on my toolbox in my garage, so.
I use mine all the time, so.
Do you really? Well,
Do you really?
good for you.
Well, yeah,
Jail, you.
the sheriff's.
Well,
Down at 911.
And then,
You're the only one.
It only makes sense to me, I
makes too much sense.
guess.
And then we're in the process of getting bids for the parking lots. So we've got one thus far, and there's another one due Friday to look at it, and then one next week. So we'll have 3 quotes on the parking lot striping to
And you
consider.
do think there's time to get that done this fall? And it's the parking lot
US
across the
Bank.
street.
That'll be sealed and striped. This will
Fourth
be
Street.
striped. This lot will be
The
striped.
south lot
And
is
then
striped.
4th Street will be sealed and striped.
So,
Gotta keep the measurements the same this time.
Although we're doing away with a couple of the,
well, they're gonna remeasure the handicap spaces because they're all different sizes. So they're gonna make those correct, and then they have to put in new stripes for the 6 new spaces.
Well, yeah, but
Do you
you're
have
not
to
gonna,
van accessible
we
for
just
every so many?
repaint
we
lines.
widened them significantly a few
right,
years
there'll
ago.
be a
And they'll
van
just repaint those lines.
accessible in 3 cars. Because a car can use the van, but you gotta have a van. And then we did a follow-up with the Boys Club for the rental of the Expo Hall. Haley took them there and they were fine with it. They said, if it's an issue, we'll just turn it off. So they were good with the issue that we presented to them.
Just tell people to dress to be outside.
Well, they actually said, we'll just warm it up above
There
and
you
then
go.
shut it off and then
Let it
finish our
slow down.
program and if it's a problem. We've taken, this has actually just come up, there's several departments that use 8.5 by, or 14.5 by 11 legal size paper. We used to take bids for it. Did we not take bids for it this time?
Noticed it till we get it in. You mean ledger?
Yeah, the assessor's office uses ledger size paper. Obviously, you've seen some that the auditor has used for budget time. We use it, and we used to take bids for it. And so now my office is buying some, but now it's, we've run out, our supply has run out. I suggest we buy some for the departments to use. How do you want to handle that?
Well, how much do we buy? We don't buy nearly as much
Oh,
of
no.
that as we do
At
by 11.
At the time, it was included in the bid, so it was multiple cases. I'll check with Joe to see how many cases we had normally bought, or maybe Beth would remember. But are you okay if we
Just getting some
go back to that?
quotes and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because we do have
We
several
need to have
departments.
it, yeah.
We do have several departments. And sometimes the prosecutor's office uses it too, so.
That's just regular legal size
No.
copy, quality paper. It's not ledger.
It's
No.
ledger, he's talking ledger.
I'm not talking ledger, I'm sorry, I missed, it's 8.5 by 11 legal size.
8.5 by
8.5 by
14.
14.
8.5 by
What's the
14.
say?
So
There's
you're not
also-
talking ledger.
There's also a larger size.
This
Yeah.
size. Yeah, we'll use
That
this.
size
That's
right
it.
there.
That's,
Yeah, this
that's
is
the
legal.
older
So we have to
14 and a
visual.
half, yeah, 11 by 14 and a half.
But they do
That's
have
ledger.
a larger size.
Yeah, and we have a little bit of that, but other departments don't use that. I use it from time to time, but we just have a couple reams of that, so.
Auditor's office uses ledger.
Then I need to check to see if that's being
Yeah, why
printed
don't you
down
check
there
on
too.
both? Check on both and let's get at
The
least a
auditor's
little bit of
office
that
is using a
ledger
lot
size.
more paper than it used to.
Yes.
That's correct.
Because we went back in time.
That's right.
I'd
And
be
then,
happy if we used no paper.
Yes, you would.
and then,
Yeah, these are all alike.
I went out to the State House last Thursday with Max Smith and Sloniker and Rods and Barrett, and there were some farmers from Wayne County. Jordan from down around Boston was there.
Jeff or
Pardon me?
Jordan, you said?
Yeah, Jordan Farms.
Jeff Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan Farm.
and to testify before and it was an interesting conversation. It was well attended. Wayne County had a good contingency there. We filled all the slots in the chambers, and Barrett and Rotz did a good job based upon the information I think we've shared with them over the years of the issues at hand. DNR was there, and they acknowledged Barrett with pressing from Barrett that there are, in their words, anomalies with the new maps. That's the term they used.
It's a euphemistic anomaly.
Yeah, and
Some part. We're kind of underwater, so.
so Senator Lysine was very sympathetic for the situation, but they all were just kind of wringing their hands. Okay, we've created this, now what do we do? And I suggested that when I testified, let's just put a pause on it and let's continue to use the FEMA maps until we have the public hearings. And I explained to them how we did our public hearings when we adopted the FEMA maps. Senator Lysine seemed to think that was a simple idea. So they're going to meet again in October 11th, I think. And I don't know where this is going to go, but whether we'll get any relief, but
Was even Mr. Sloniger happy with that resolution?
I haven't got a chance to talk to Steve afterwards. In fact, he called me yesterday and I need to return his call because he wanted my take on it. They were also interested, also what was talked about was the local drainage board's authority over some of these, drains
And haven't they changed the rules on when you need to go to DNR for a
Stump removal.
license to clean our ditches, for
And
example?
that was one of
We
the
have to
issues.
get permission to clean our ditches?
Yeah, if there's a tree that falls in one of these drainage ditches for a farmer, you have to get a permit to remove it, which can take up to 120 days. Well, by that time, planting season's over, and that was the point that the farmers made. You don't react quick enough, for us to clean it up. So you have farmers who violate the law because they want to.
Well, and just
Drain their
think of how many hundreds or thousands of permits they would have to issue if every time a tree fell in a ditch and you had to get a permit.
And so, to that point, and then to the point back to the flood maps, they did put in a couple options, and this was interesting because the committee, the legislatures, thought that the changes they made would be helpful to us. They thought that you could still use the FEMA maps in lieu of best available. In fact, Brad or Rotz and Eric even made that comment during the meeting. We thought that was the intent, that you could use either or, and that's not what it says. The options are that the landowner has to get his own elevation certificate, which costs money, or you can have DNR review it, but they can take up to 120 days to review it at no cost. But again, if you're building a garage, it's built in a couple of weeks and don't wait 120 days. And I made that point that, it's just a delay. But what they also created was to do these 120-day reviews, they needed more manpower. So, some of the legislatures are saying, okay, how's this going to impact the DNR's budget? So it's
Not resolved.
yeah, there's no resolution, and it's what I'm said, we're just sitting here wringing our hands for a solution, so. And then before you is this sheet, and these are the cars that's been identified for the auction this year,
Which is the 30th, correct?
which is
It's
September
a week from
30th.
Saturday.
This will have a final review by the fleet committee tonight. One change that just occurred yesterday is that apparently, according to the prosecutor's investigator, the city must have reassigned that, remember that Pontiac that they were gonna give us? Well, apparently they reassigned it, so it's not coming here.
We
And
weren't
so-
quick enough
So
picking
that
it up.
that car that's listed in the prosecutor's office will be pulled from the sale. Now, what I don't know, and Jeff, do you remember any conversation of why remember that Crown Vic that the health department's using? What issues did it have?
Didn't they replace the seat, right?
We
The
did,
seat was
we went to the
broken.
junkyard and got some new seats, but there must have been some other mechanical issues that why Mike felt like that would go in, but
There weren't originally, but
I think we wanna ask tonight,
Because the mileage on that's not
Yeah,
bad
should-
at all.
should we put the prosecutor's Crown
That's-
Vic in?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, that,
And it's a newer car to start with too, so.
Much newer.
give them the choice, you know, get with Mike and say, which of these four cars, which is the best?
Which Crown Vic is that? That comes in the sheriff's department in
Yeah.
2011? Was that a maroon
Yes.
one?
It was,
Yes, yes.
That's in
teens.
good shape.
It was, except for the seat at the
Yeah.
time. Now, that's
The
been
interior
2 or
was
3
broken.
years ago.
Yeah, well, I know who owned it, so.
Yeah.
Or drove it, so.
And-
Yeah, I mean, but that mechanically, I thought that was a good car, unless
Again, it
something's
was,
changed.
Unless
And
it's
so
had
we
problems.
want, just before we,
Yeah, I think we need to ask Mike if that's a better car, then we certainly ought to give that to the prosecutor
Yeah.
instead of taking that 2003 back.
and then that last one, it's on a different format, but that's the coroner's truck, that red one. That's got about,
That originally was EMA, right?
correct.
Okay.
So,
This truck is in now.
yes, after the wreck.
Yeah.
And it was a fire, wasn't it?
It was a
burned up.
fire.
It burned
It
up.
was a fire.
And remarkably,
They were
replacement
delivering the
car.
coroner's new truck, and the delivery truck caught on fire. All the cars were destroyed that he was hauling.
The coroner's truck died.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's,
but this replacement truck came way quicker than the first
yeah.
one. Yeah, I mean, it came within a matter of weeks, but.
Yeah.
So this will be final review by the fleet committee unless you folks have some objections to these, this is what will go to the auction.
Yeah, with that one exception of
Yeah, switching
having
those two.
Mike think about switching the two.
That's all I have, Jeff.
Okay, well, that was perfect segue for Sheriff Redder to walk in right on time. Good morning. We're ready for you.
Perfect segue, perfect time.
Absolutely, as always.
Thank you. Really short order of business. I've got 2 firearms that have been requested. 2 firearms that had been requested to be transferred for purchase by 2 officers eligible for retirement. And the first is Randy Brown. Randy Brown started with Wayne County Sheriff's Office in 1980. And he served for many years, moving to the civil process position, retiring from the merit position and moving to the civil process position in September 1st of 2013. He is now officially retired from that position on September the 5th, 2023. And then Rick Falls began work as a merit deputy for the sheriff's office on March 1st of 2011. And he left employment with our agency on August 15th of 2022. Both of them satisfy the current requirement for 10 years of service which would allow them by ordinance to purchase the firearm at half the replacement cost of the firearm. Get you the serial numbers. The firearm for Randy Brown, back up, the actual half of the replacement cost for the Glock Model 17 for law enforcement pricing would be $238. And Randy Brown's firearm serial number is B as in boy, H as in Henry, G as in George, T as in Tom, 835. So it's BHGT 835. And it's a Glock Model 17, 9mm. firearm for Rick Falls is the same make and model, same replacement cost. And the serial number for that is BHGT 892. BHGT 892. I would kindly ask the commissioners to consider the ordinance that would allow him to purchase those firearms at half the replacement.
So an ordinance, this requires an ordinance, or is there an
No,
ordinance?
the
that
ordinance
we just-
exists.
We've already, it's been adopted, right?
Yeah.
So
Just a
we
matter
just
of-
need to approve
Correct.
the sale at that price.
Yeah,
Make a
ordinance
motion
number.
that we authorize the sheriff to sell those two Glock 17s to Rick Falls and Randy Brown.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Excellent. We'll get the paperwork together and make that arrangement later this week.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Matthew?
We are on time. Ahead by 13 minutes.
Glad I came up early.
Me too.
As we talked about last week, have two different things asking you to approve. The first is the 2023 Wayne County Hazardous Material Plan. By statute, that is something we have to bring before you for promulgation each year. Again, the base plan itself is very much unchanged. What changes each year is the annex, the actual facilities, because it depends on what quantities of chemicals they have as to which ones have to report and what they report. So the only change in that plan was the annex. It has to also be approved by the local emergency planning council, and that will be done in our meeting in October. It will be brought before that group for their approval. But it has to also be approved by commissioners, so I wanted to get that done ahead of that meeting.
So we had a copy of that for review. Any questions about our role in this or the document itself? If not, is there a motion to approve the local emergency planning committee's hazardous materials emergency response?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. And the signature is at the bottom of that page for the commissioners, and I believe it's a line for each commissioner to sign.
Indeed.
The second item asked you to consider was the contract with our contracted employee for quality assurance and quality improvement for the dispatch center. That original contract written by Mr. Cross went into effect 2 or 3 years ago and has been working very well for our agency. Provided a lot of great feedback and good program, just standard best practice for our industry as well. And since we haven't had any change in the last 2 or 3 years, the only change to that contract is I wanted to increase what we were paying Mr. Corson for those reviews. So it's the only change in that contract is going from $8 a review to $10 a review. And for any conference calls that we have with him, $20 an hour to $25 an hour. Other than that, there's no other change in verbiage in that contract.
And you've had that discussion with council about that line item in your budget.
Correct.
So,
No,
And we learned this morning that that is indeed a significant bargain compared to what other consultants are charging.
that's what we're finding out. I had no idea what other agencies were spending, but we went to the directors meeting for a variety of different counterparts throughout the state. And they were paying some companies that do it upwards of 30 and 40,000 a year, and we're doing it for less than 10. So I was very thankful when I heard that. So
We didn't tell Tom.
yeah, we didn't tell Tom. Yeah, we didn't tell
Tom.
him. Yeah, I'm
Not
so
like
glad
this
it's
would be
not on
or
TV.
anything.
Where's he, is he in Atlanta? Where's he at now?
He's in St. Mary's, Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah, so he's able to do everything remotely, and so that makes it work well.
I move for approval of the quality assurance.
And it's just signed by the president.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to allow the president to sign the new contract. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. There are 2 copies there if you don't mind. And then once I get Mr. Forson's signature, I'll make sure that you get a copy.
Great, thank you.
Can't bring myself to say that.
Just
You can tell him I said that.
okay. Thank you very much.
Professional, thank you.
Tom's a good guy.
All right. Mary Ann, do we have some claims?
Yes, move for approval of the advanced draw distribution to Richmond Community Schools dated September 15th. And the regular claims dated today, September 20th.
That's it. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those claims. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.
I also move for approval of Commissioners' minutes dated September 13th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bobby,
Yes.
what have you got for us?
First off, I have the insurance comp package line is in a negative balance and we need to request $23,000 from council tonight.
What's the number?
23,000.
3,000. So remember at the beginning of July, the cost of insurance went up as we entered into a renewal. This is our casualty insurance through Lions. And so there is money because of vacancies in several departments over the year. There is over $100,000 available in the PERF line item in the commissioner's budget. So I would recommend that we request from council a transfer in that amount from the PERF line item to that insurance line item.
Do you want to we just do that tonight and take the motion, or do you want to go ahead and approve that
Let's
now?
approve the requesting that from council,
So
because
moved.
they'll have to approve it.
So
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is that a premium shortfall or is that some
Correct. It's
kind of audit expense after payroll?
It's premium,
So we, I was gonna say mid-year, we just signed it.
mid-year increase. Okay, what else have you got, Bobby?
Mike Sharp has requested to hire another truck driver. This will make the 3rd one he has a listing for. He has a gentleman retiring and we need to fill that spot.
So, to request that a position be refilled for highway and truck driver slot.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to allow Mike to refill that position. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Takes 3 signatures on your paper.
You're just passing that down, okay? And this other one,
That's just,
this is the new transfer form from the auditor's office, okay? What else have you got?
The only other thing I have is if we've had any more consideration into the county holiday schedule for next year.
We will discuss that in a minute,
That's all I have.
okay? So, Mary Ann, do you wanna give us an update on the opioid and the reporting from last week?
really only 3 things. Number one, we had $155 left over from the 2022 first round. We had $411,000 in 2022, and we spent all but $155 of that. Of course, we're still withholding $148 pending the receipt of the septic quotes that we're expecting soon from Crossroads.
Right.
And I spoke with Executive Director last week, and they're getting much closer. It's in the hands of the Indiana State Department of Health. Their engineer has done all of his work, so now it's out of their hands. So we certainly have money on hands because in addition to that, we did receive the $88,000 for the 2023 manufacturer's distribution, of which we expended, 42,000? So didn't we approve that for?
What was that for?
Tim Pearson was here to request,
Hiring the part-time.
right, to finish up,
No,
no,
all we
it
did-
wasn't 42,000,
All we
that
did
would have
was
taken it to
6,700 or 8,000.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
just the
it was a-
fourth quarter of 2023.
Correct.
Yeah, I need to make sure we keep track of this because that's the only expenditure. Let's see, how much was that? We just approved five,
3,900.
what was it?
3,900.
$3,900 to finish up the fourth quarter. And then we could consider his
Right.
2024 request, I'm sorry, his $42,000 request would be reduced by 3,900, which is all we approved out of the 2023
Yeah, I don't
distribution.
think it would be reduced because he would ask for a whole year for 2024.
Well, I mean,
So-
his total request was 42,975.
And that was for 15 months?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, you know,
Yeah.
so his total request would be reduced, the 42,000 is what stuck in my mind.
okay.
So we did approve, and that was submitted because I always took part in submitting the opioid settlement claims. Has that been submitted?
No.
Okay. So I think we'll have to generate that submission since it was approved. This is kind of unusual because we don't normally
Right. Well,
do this kind of thing.
what's normal? We just,
Yeah.
we've done it
Have one
once, so.
We're
It's too
establishing
early to have
traditions
normal
here,
yet.
right. So with your concurrence, I'll go ahead and issue that claim
Absolutely.
to send that because
Yeah.
he's recruiting now and
Right.
hopefully we'll be hiring in the next 10 days. So,
Right, yeah, absolutely.
so I'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, we just sort of left that loop unclosed last week. As I gave you a hard copy, I couldn't quite email it out of the electronically submitted. I suppose I could have emailed you the hard copy that I did finally get back from them, but this was
All right.
all information that you received individually from
Yep.
the 7 recipients.
Right.
So while I'd hoped to give it to you last Wednesday, I did submit it a day in advance of the deadline, so I hope everyone at the AIC knows that Wayne County did beat the deadline and
Well, and you know, we were never on the did not start list, we were on the in process list. So
That's right, I don't
You
know
were
how they
fine.
knew that,
I
but
don't either.
I'm guessing somebody else in Wayne County government sent a partial report or something.
I think I got an email and I told them that you were working on it
Lots of
from
people,
AIC.
I think they submitted it to everybody but the highway department. And
Okay.
update, these small towns who received less than $5,000, only Dublin and Economy, as of today, have turned
Paid
over
that.
their distribution to us.
And you saw the email from the auditor saying that.
It was
he
a
would
personally
handle
delivered letter, hard
Yeah.
copy, actually.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
on paper.
To
Right.
them,
it to us, saying that the auditor's office would handle that,
the distribution back.
the collection
Oh,
back from
from those
from
that
the
had
towns.
remitted.
Correct.
Although we've already informed them that we are in negotiation with the Attorney General's office regarding the necessity to do so. And that it has not fully been resolved yet, but it's a lot of paperwork for their error.
Okay,
Anyway, that's just Dublin and Economy are the only two that have submitted so far.
and then at some point, we turn around and send that back to them.
It's their money.
I know, but I mean, that's the,
Yeah, the Attorney General was
Issue.
supposed to send it to us.
Yeah.
But he sent it to small towns.
okay.
And was our use restricted to projects beneficial to the town?
No,
So
we can't use it. Last year, we sent it back to them at a later date. Wrote checks to them.
we can't use it, or
No,
It's their money.
Every municipality in
I know that it was
America.
in the law, but it didn't make any sense.
Well,
you know.
apparently the issue was the Attorney General's office was supposed to send it to us in the first place, and then we were supposed to distribute it.
All that for the
And so
save
now they have to send it back to us, and
save
then
the state
we'll
from
have
having
to
to write a
send it
separate
back to
check.
them.
I mean, that's what it boiled down to.
Right, there's,
Except that they already wrote those separate checks, so I don't understand.
it's the statute reads that any municipality being awarded less than $5,000 will have their distribution sent to the county. And then the county shall submit that distribution back to the small municipality.
Yeah.
And I checked to see what was the smallest municipality in America to receive a distribution. There's a town in Texas with a population of 1 that actually got a distribution of opioid settlement funds. But anyway, that, so
Anyway,
if we get it, we'll send it back.
okay.
Sounds like the auditor said it.
Let's move on. The ordinance allowing donations to be spent.
Met with Kathy on that, and she said she'd found 2 ordinances. I'd only seen one. That was the ordinance related to the acceptance of donations for employee benefit recognition. I have not got the second one yet. She and I missed each other because that was Thursday, and I haven't been back to her. We have policies in place which are comparable to ordinances ordinances of the schools. So I think it's just go ahead and do one. If it's repetitious, we'll just have the general statement that all ordinances inconsistent with this are hereby repealed, those that are not are continue in effect.
Okay, so you'll take care of that in the next,
I have a question. If we pass an ordinance allowing a dollar limit perhaps for recognition to organizations for proclamations, for example, because we've been purchasing proclamation plaques out of our personal
I
funds.
shouldn't have to do that. I think an ordinance under a home rule that would limit the funding of that to a per item amount and an annual budget amount, and direct that it be funded from a source such as county edit.
County Ed, because it is
With the
for economic
recitation that,
development.
you know, these projects typically enhance the quality of place, life, and overall betterment of the local economy. I think that would get you out of this situation, which is not right.
There's been an uptick in the number of proclamations being requested for quality of place and historic celebrations and that sort of thing. I think the word's getting around that proclamations can enhance that celebration of quality of place. And
And probably even commission Tommy Bartle to do three fingers for the governor, but who knows, two ever. Give him 5, give him 6, okay?
would you mind drafting that
No,
according to the
I got
language
that on my,
I would sure appreciate that because
I'm not gonna go back and try to find the other ordinance she says she found. I'll ask her first. My guess is it's not comprehensive.
I'm sure it's not. So, yeah, if you can go ahead with both of those, that would be great.
and on employee recognition, we are having a December lunch in
The holiday
here.
lunch, yeah.
Would it be appropriate to consider purchasing anniversary recognition for employees with,
You got that ordinance, I could pull it out and read the details, but it allows you to accept donations for that purpose.
Right,
But I don't know that
it doesn't allow us to spend tax
taxpayer
dollars
dollars.
on that. And that's the issue, so.
and to your knowledge, there was not a law passed by the General Assembly maybe 3 years ago allowing,
I'm sure the General Assembly passed a lot of laws 3 years ago. I just don't, I'll look and see, but I'm
would you
not.
mind checking that? Because I remember something loosened up regarding employee retention, that recognition or something to that effect because of the recruitment and retention difficulty that counties and towns were having. That it set a very low dollar amount, as I recall. It was, I think, about the same time when they allowed a county to pass an ordinance permitting elected officials to accept a low dollar amount meal from, I think it was about that same year when
I
they,
mean, do we need to go all that, can we, I mean, is it not allowed for Bobby to print a certificate and hand him to it that?
Technically, it's not, the way I recall the conversation. Now, that's been 10 years ago, but that's my
I think
understanding.
we waste enough paper. I'll donate the money for, if you really wanna do that, and I'll donate the money.
We can
To print
figure
a
out a
certificate?
certificate.
Yeah, What's it gonna be?
At the time, there were pins,
We were,
you know, a
With
5-year
pins.
pin, a 10-year pin, a 20-year pin, that kind of thing that was, you know, it was a more significant amount.
but if we're just
But
talking about a certificate.
certificate, I have no problem with providing the paper. You know,
we're gonna lose things with that. I would like to
oh,
honor Mary Ann's request and check that out.
I'd
But if
like
you-
for you to, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'd like to do something, somebody working for the county for 40 years, I think we ought to do something more than a piece of paper.
So anyway, you'll look at that and we'll continue this discussion. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, the ARPA list that I sent out a week or so ago. It's my intention to discuss that tonight at the workshop with council. So if there's further discussion here, we have, Beth and I have been working on a spreadsheet, and we'll have that tonight. It's not quite done yet. But it essentially shows that we have a little bit less than 5 million. It's in the $4 to $4.5 million range that is available. That's split between lost revenue funds and the restricted funds, which is that 2.78 million. Remember that we got 12.78 million total. We took $10 million as lost revenue, which has a whole different set of guidelines on how you can spend it. And then 2.78 million is under the original restrictive rules that the Treasury put on the money. We'll have that whole breakdown, but essentially this list is just ideas. It's not a ranked list. It's not anything like that. It's just trying to capture what various people and departments have suggested. So if you want to add anything to this list, you can do that now, or we can do it tonight, as all 10 of us are sitting around discussing this. So, but either way is fine with me.
Do you have a list today of what has been committed thus far?
We do, and that's what that spreadsheet will reflect. So remember that just under $6 million has been committed for the HELP Strategic Investment Plan. There's Beth's salary, of course, as the community coordinator. There is $1,080,000 that is the clerk's scanning project. And
Could you go get it maybe? Because I'd kind of like to have our own we've never really discussed or reached any kind of we've never discussed how we'd like to spend our money, commissioners. And we've got a half an hour or so.
let me take a minute. I don't know whether it's ready, but if it is,
I
she's been working on it, so I don't know what
I
format.
bet she knows what's
Let me-
committed.
Recess for a minute and I'll just see if we have that.
Yeah, I think.
So the first page there, the ARPA funds overview. You see that you got $12,797,195 initially. $2,097,389 was appropriated. The HELP project commitments, $5,893,253, which means the total committed is $7,990,000. Total uncommitted, $4,806,000. So if you go over to the right-hand side there, U.S. Treasury reported use. So remember, 10 million is lost revenue, 2,797,000 is the restricted use. So we're tracking that separately because it has to be reported separately and it has different rules that apply. So we've appropriated $1,041,514 of lost revenue. That was appropriated. We've committed the $5,893,000. Total committed $6,034,000. Total uncommitted for lost revenue $3,965,000. restricted side, there's a total uncommitted of $841,320. And then these are what has happened with non-help projects. So recall in 2022, $425,875 was spent on radios for the sheriff's department. Then appropriated for 2023, the community coordinator salary is committed for 2 years. We actually got a grant from Okra for $20,000 to help offset the cost of that community coordinator salary. So that's reflected there. We started out with,
Appropriated, how's it reflected?
it's reflected as a negative $20,000 because we're gonna use that money to save $20,000 off of that community coordinator
Oh, that's all the
line.
grant was $20,000?
$20,000.
I thought it was more.
One-time grant for $20,000. We started out with approval from council to do a grant administrator. You know, we went through that process, had interviews, didn't find anybody that we thought would be appropriate. So reduced that commitment to 0. FICA, perf, and health for 2 years for the community coordinator is that next line item, $48,624. So that carries over with the appropriation paid to date and the appropriation balance. Remember that that's for 2 years. Then the scanning project, $1,080,000 was the commitment. We appropriated $600,000 for 2023. We've spent $295,000. We have $304,000 left in the appropriation for this year. Capital equipment, the council appropriated or committed and appropriated $250,000. That has not been spent. Sheriff's vehicles, they committed and appropriated $200,000. That has not been spent.
They identify that capital equipment.
They did not. Capital equipment. So, my sense is, you know, it's still possible that we could spend that this year, but remember that there are a few hoops that need to be jumped through to spend ARPA dollars, things like making sure that the entity that you're doing business with is not debarred from receiving funding through the federal government. These are federal dollars, and so we haven't gone through that process with anybody that's selling us capital equipment or sheriff vehicles at this point. So we need to coordinate that. It may be most appropriate to simply defer that money if we still want to spend it on those things, to defer it to 2024, where we can make sure we follow the appropriate process. So essentially, $2,097,000 was committed, $1,675,000 was appropriated. We've spent $764,000 to date. There's still $910,000 in appropriated funds. The next page is the commitments for the help projects that we approved last couple weeks ago. And then the final page is another version of this list of possible
This is what was
expenditures.
approved?
Yes,
I thought there was 100,000 approved for animal welfare.
I wasn't here when you guys approved it, so you two were.
Yes?
there is. There's 100,000, 50,000 from the county, 50,000 from the city. This reflects the
Oh,
county's
this is just the
commitment.
counties,
This is
okay, yeah,
county's
okay,
commitment.
yeah, I'm picturing the,
This is
final,
the
okay.
county's commitment.
okay.
So that's it, $5,893,253. And then the third page again is just that list that I put together as a starting point for conversation. So
You know, I didn't bring that. list? Do you have
It's
it?
right there.
Oh, third
It's
page.
attached, it's the third
Page
page.
three.
Oh, page 3, there we go.
Page 3, it's
It
exactly,
looks different.
it's exactly the same as that.
It's a smaller font.
Smaller font, 4,800,000. And again, there is no particular priority to that list. It's items that have come up in previous discussions or that I've heard of. You know, Mike has talked about fuel tank replacement. You know, if you want to add things on, if you saw the additional list from when we had our department head meeting, I asked Mike if there was anything else. He sent a list which totals about $1 million for things, everything from building a barn big enough to park 20 trucks in, to painting his building for, I think that was 25,000. I think the barn was $1 million maybe, or no, it was 300,000 or 400,000. Anyway, you got the list. I can show you a copy of that if you don't have it. It was an email that Mike sent to all three of us. And anything else you want to add for consideration? So the only group we have not discussed this with, and I would anticipate at our meeting in October, would be with the elected officials when we meet with them again in October. And at some point this calendar year, we need to refine this list within the scope of what we have available, and get council consensus. And then either, I'm not sure whether they have an ARPA budget or whether we'll need to have them do an additional appropriation with whatever the list is, because the money is all in the ARPA fund. So that we can begin project implementation. So what's your pleasure?
We've never discussed how we feel about these various requests. I just think it'd be nice to discuss among the three of us our feelings on
Go
this.
ahead.
I think there's, you know, the overarching question is, could some of these projects be funded in full or in part through regular means? I mean, this one-time ARPA fund is intended to have legacy kinds of impact. And some of these are kind of workmanlike, if you will.
So which ones in particular?
Fuel tank replacement, you know, as people drive by the highway department, I don't think they're gonna look off to the north and say, oh, aren't we proud to have this legacy investment by having that leaky tank replaced, you know what I mean? As compared to, you know, a housing kind of upgrade or something.
I understand what you're saying. This is something that has to be done, and if there's not 500,000 somewhere else, this is a
I mean,
place
shouldn't
to
we
pay
plan
for it.
on that kind of maintenance and that, but you see what my point is that, I mean, let's go back to the reason why. I mean, every community suffered because of COVID.
Mhm.
And the suffering, this is to offset that. I would hope that there could be something more.
And so what would you offer in place of fuel tank replacement?
Maybe not paying for the whole thing, but trying to figure out how we could budget for this kind of workmanlike project. Do we have to do this now by 2025? Couldn't we-
It's better
couldn't
to
we
do it
fund it
now
in
than
20
after it starts leaking.
Well, this isn't, you know, this isn't the first we've known about this. But I mean,
So-
that's just that's just an illustration
Okay.
of,
That's fine. So let's assume for the moment that there is $4.8 million that's not committed. So if you took off fuel tank replacement, what would you put in its place?
housing is one of this county's greatest challenges right now. Population decline. Quality of life and housing is one of those greatest challenges we face. That, is contributing to our population decline. I feel that the modest amount that is being targeted for housing would be a more appropriate way to spend funding rather than the workmanlike
There's already more than $2 million committed to housing. So what's the number that,
And then we have the 500,000 for the homeowners program.
homeownership program? We
Can you
have
describe that?
that to you, Brad.
We're in the infancy stages of this, and I'm thinking some kind of down payment assistance program for
Like Washington County, Wisconsin, right?
similar to that, yeah, but
Is it forgivable or is it repayable?
we're just now starting it. It's gonna be one of those things we're gonna have to work through, find a lender that's willing to coordinate this, do all the work on it. We're just providing the funds. But
Would it, I don't know if it would make sense if we could tie that into the revolving loan fund, as a separate program. Or take that type approach. I don't wanna get confused with the original revolving loan fund grant.
I think-
It would be separate.
I think, Brad's idea is to work with the local banks as part of their mortgage process to provide down payment assistance if you meet certain criteria.
yeah, there's gonna be a criteria, and then we have this pool of money, and they if they need $10,000 for a down payment, and then it's kind of a grant. I envision it as a forgivable grant after so many years of living in the property occupancy. If they sell it within, let's say, 5 years, they have to repay a prorated portion of that back.
Kind of like the homeowners rehab grants.
Yeah,
Have been
very
available
similar
sometimes.
to-
There's some clawbacks.
Yeah,
You have
it's
to
very similar to
qualify.
like Indiana Housing Finance Authorities,
Right.
where they have a pool of money at the beginning of the year and you sign up for it and you have to qualify for this program for your down payment assistance.
Yeah, it's like Washington Township, Washington County, Wisconsin does, is allow the homeowner to pay it back at $25 an hour for volunteering for a community organization.
Yeah,
That's
and
kind
that's-
of interesting.
It's but
Lot of paperwork
the
on it.
tracking of that is a nightmare, and are we gonna do that? We can't allow, the lenders handle it. How are they gonna, they're not gonna wanna take on that.
Well, the lender doesn't track it, but I think a United Way kind of an organization tracks through their,
I just see that as a county nightmare kind of thing, so.
the county doesn't track.
Any more obstacles you put in front of these individuals getting this money, the less people are you gonna have apply for it.
It apparently is working because their population has responded to it,
But
but I think, I like a down payment program, but our problem is we don't have the houses on which to pay down payments. I would like to see a fund that gets our vacant homes restored before they have gone beyond being restorable. We have so many older homes that are on the brink of never being able to be rehabbed. A lot of 100-year-old homes, 100-year-old plus, that have good bones, to borrow one of my favorite TV programs title. They have good bones, but there's, between water damage and everything else, if we don't start saving some of those vacant homes pretty soon, they're gonna be gone forever. and the cost of building new is a whole lot higher than saving some of these really fine, architecturally significant older homes in not just Richmond, but throughout the county.
I'm not sure that's always the case. In fact, I'm sure it's not always the case, but it may be. It depends on the condition of the home you're trying to save.
I went to hearing yesterday morning for the health department on a septic enforcement failure of septic systems. A brick, nicely curb appealed from the front, ranch on Tingler Road, built in probably the 60s. And it looks really pretty good, but you're looking at $12,000 sewer system.
Yeah,
Septic
septic is,
replacement.
yeah,
These folks can't get it, and their lenders are out of town, Quicken Mortgage, that type. So our concern is just making sure we file some kind of document of record so that no one innocently buys it, shouldn't buy it if they see it's in failure, but really, that's a type of property that with $10,000, you could have $175,000, $165,000 property. Because it's got some good square footage and it is brick exterior, it's really.
I know that there's several of individuals in our community that buy homes and
Right.
flip them.
And they don't.
And if these historical homes are worth the profit margin for them, they would have
They'll
already
do
bought them. But the cost to rehab them does not override
Well,
the-
or
the
they
profit.
require an event to do that, whether it's a tax sale or commissioner's deed sale or a sheriff's sale.
where
There's
they
a
can be
gap.
purchased at a.
Very likely this will be
There's a gap, and there are several projects within the help plan that address those gaps. And so there's $1 million in infrastructure from the county. There's a blight program which would tear down
yeah.
properties that are too far gone. But there's another $1 million for infrastructure to encourage developers to build here.
Second story,
Well, there's another $1 million for that. So there's $2 million plus another $500,000 for blight. There's a significant amount of money already in here for housing, and plus this $500,000 that's on the list for a down payment kind of program. I don't object to putting a number in here for some kind of fix-up program. I'm not sure how we would administer it at this point, but we can figure that out. We've got time. So if that's the issue, if you want to add that, let's just add that.
I just
'cause
wanna deliberate,
I think it makes
that's all.
sense.
I
Well, but we can deliberate among this group right now that it's a good idea, but we can't develop a plan and a project in its entirety, in the next hour. So I would be inclined to, I don't disagree with you at all, on adding something to try to get some of these properties to save them from ultimate demolition. If we can, just recognizing that every old property is not gonna be
I
a
didn't
candidate
say
for
every.
this. Yeah, I know.
maybe 10%, 5%.
So do you wanna put 500,000 on a line here for, what would we call it? Existing home renovation without putting all the details of how the project would work. So existing home renovation, and that could mean you have to be an owner occupant of the home to qualify, or you may not have to be.
Or a landlord.
Well, you could be, depending on how we write the thing. So existing home renovation, what number do you wanna put to it, 500,000? And you're kinda talking about replacing the fuel tank replacement with this, but
Well,
what's the number? What's a number you wanna put in here?
I'm not saying the fuel tank replacement isn't important, but I think we ought to be able to budget half of the fuel tank replacement take $250,000 out of the fuel tank replacement and budget
Okay.
in 2025 for fuel tank replacement.
I don't wanna, I would prefer not to take anything out of this until we sit down with council, but I have no problem at all with adding things.
Yeah, I'd like to have a point of view before we go to council.
We can have a point of view, but to me, you're talking about 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And I think it makes more sense personally. I understand your idea of this money is for lasting achievements, but it also has time limits on it. And if we use this money now on projects that are essentially ready to go, and we preserve other dollars that can be used that don't have a time limit on them, we can take as much time as we need. Even some of these dollars are gonna be more flexible if we preserve general fund dollars by using some of the ARPA dollars. Because the general fund dollars essentially have no strings attached, no time limits. And we can use them in the ways that we think are most appropriate, and most effective to move the needle in Wayne County, so.
Okay, well, I'm fine with 80-60. I mean, you made such a strong case for fuel tank. I was trying to reach a compromise, but let's just add $500,000.
Let's add $500,000.
Existing
I
home.
mean, eventually, we'll have to decide,
Right.
here's the number,
Right.
we've gotta fit within this, but we don't have to do that
Right,
right now.
let's not,
Okay, so we'll add 500,000 for existing home renovation. You okay with that, Brad?
Sure.
Anything else you wanna add?
I really wanna take away court staffing. I really do not think ARPA dollars were ever intended for staffing.
In fact, that actually fits under the original guidelines.
Restricted use.
To restricted use, to use money to help the courts get through the
Oh, really?
Backlog.
It's been so
increased-
long since I read the
increased
restrictions.
the increased backlog brought on by COVID, so it
And
is,
that is really
it is
directly what
absolutely,
this is.
It has a expense category assigned to it.
I
absolutely.
remember that. It's been so long since I read the restrictions. It's right in there.
It is,
And that's what this
and that's why
does.
it's here. And that's why I have suggested to council, because they've been wrestling with how are we gonna provide these additional staff positions with a budget that only has a limited amount of new money. And I suggested this is something that is specifically doable under ARPA, and we can, over a couple of years, we can wean ourselves back off of it. So we pay the full freight in 2024, we pay half of it in 2025, and then in 2026, we've gotta go back to other forms of financing. But
Well,
if in
hopefully,
fact they need
the
them,
COVID backlog, when the courts were closed, will be caught up by then.
we certainly hope so, but I don't see any signs of any slowing in the
Well,
amount
I
of
think the
money.
volume of activity isn't slowing, but I sense the backlog is nearly what it was this time last year.
And so the
It is not what it
backlog will
was.
I mean, the backlog is.
It will be fixed, but at that point, then council will have to decide, do we still need these additional staff?
That's
And if
the
we
legal
do,
staffing that the judges were talking about.
exactly, and the prosecutor.
Prosecutor.
So we'll, that is
Yeah,
specifically,
it
that
really
can go
is. It
under
truly-
the.
Yeah. For court backlog, you're right, but I mean, if we were going to staff the auditor's office, that is not.
And that's not in here.
Right, okay.
What else?
I'm willing to, do we really think it's gonna cost $500,000 to spend on our hardscaping, landscaping?
Yes.
Yes, probably more.
Do we really have to remove those bricks?
Well, you'll decide that, but we need,
I think
I think
they're
so.
doing nothing but getting worse. They're already a trip hazard, particularly in the winter.
Say we get to bid and then we make
I-
that determination.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
we can always change that, but if we get a bid, then we can value engineer it, we can do whatever we need. I think my view would be, we remove all that, we replace it with a much smaller sidewalk, and we fill in and plant grass then where the bricks used to be.
What if we offer the bricks for free to those who take them away.
In 10 years, we may have half our bricks gone.
But, you know, I don't think scooping up those bricks is gonna be the bulk of the expense. And that's all you're talking about. You know, if you talk about take these bricks for free, but by the way, put in a sidewalk for us to replace it, that's not gonna fly.
Everything costs more anyhow, so I think it's gonna be much more than 500,000 to do that.
And remember, this is not just taking out those bricks. It's also the changing how the parking is. So you're taking out a piece of the sidewalk, cutting that out, replacing it with deeper parking spaces along that side. And then it's also dealing with the courthouse side of the street and resolving the ADA issues as well as security issues that go along with that entrance to the courthouse.
What was the bid just for the landscaping that we got that plan several years
That
ago?
was $300,000.
We are not gonna spend that on landscape.
Right, I'm just, in comparison, I mean, landscaping's
Well, and
Not cheap.
there was another plan for an entrance to the courthouse just on the west side of Fourth Street. And that was $500,000 just by itself. So, but it was limestone
and part of that,
steps
we
and all of that
we
kind of
discussed
stuff.
the entrance, that putting a ramp there, so
Right,
that's
that-
all part
that would
of
be
that
part of
500,000, so you start adding up all these things that we looked.
I don't think it'll be less than that.
Moving on to, I had a conversation with, well, anyway, the cabling and data invoice, there is a way for us to roll out a new telephone system if we lay in the cabling first, and I
And
think
this is
that
just for
is-
cabling, yes.
but
And
you know,
then you
that
can
that whole
department-
multi-million-dollar, doing that
Department by
first, so
Are you
granted,
okay with that?
you know, our citizens are not going to
Well, they're gonna have,
be proud of that legacy, but it's something that I think we just,
I think they shouldn't be ashamed of it. It's
No,
it's
it will
keeping up
serve
with
them better.
technology.
It'll serve them
Our
better.
phone system will be more effective, our data system will be more effective and
and
we'll
it'll
be able
save
to
them a trip
provide better
to
service.
Richmond from Dalton,
Absolutely,
so,
assuming they have internet in Dalton.
Dalton
Or phone.
Township by the way, has the highest educational attainment of all our townships.
Per capita?
The highest educational attainment, partially because professors from Ball State tend to live in Dalton more than they do Boston Township.
Okay, on down the list.
There you go.
Congratulations to Dalton, that's wonderful.
Steve, don't you live in Dalton?
No, he lives in Jefferson,
Oh,
as do
I must be one of the dumb townships.
You know me
you
and the
said
family,
that, not me.
I know it.
you know,
Shame on you. Okay,
security issues, do you think with this newfound information about our prox system that we really need to spend $250,000 on prox cards and stuff?
yes, on the locks.
And we don't know, this
But you
is not
said our
money that we're
existing
spending,
pro-
it's just
Well,
They're
projected.
yeah, we're
projections.
changing the locks. We won't change the actual reader, but it's the lock mechanism.
We
So-
only have 2 doors.
Well, I don't know how far you wanna go with this.
Well, we're looking at courthouse,
We're gonna.
That's
we're-
one door.
We're gonna get
and
more
exit.
there's
information
side doors, there's
next
back
week, yeah.
doors.
So we'll get more
I'll be
information.
able to.
There's
do
more
that.
security issues than just you can't wave your hand and say, I mean, there's other things in place that we've looked at that
Those are all egress. We have
Don't-
only 2.
Don't focus so
Ingress.
much on the number. Okay, because that's gonna fluctuate as we actually get bids, quotes. We'll put actual numbers in here. This is a placeholder. The previous estimate from 3 or 4 years ago was $150,000 on the locks. I picked 250 just as an escalator if inflation. Maybe it's 50,000, maybe it's 300,000. So let's not focus so much on the number. We're gonna have to clarify that as we go through the process. But are you comfortable with spending money on that Prox card lock system?
Just feels like we're spending an awful lot of money on ourselves. I mean,
Any money we're spending is for the benefit of the citizens of Wayne County. Yeah, and I don't feel like it makes much difference whether we spend it out of this, or we spend it out of general fund, or we spend it out of rainy day fund, or any other fund for that matter. We have to balance all those accounts, and we have to spend this money. We have to commit it by the end of 2024, we have to spend it by the end of 2026.
let's talk about that consortium for a grant writer.
So we already had money committed for a grant writer for us. This is conversation that I've had with people at the Wayne County Foundation, at the Chamber, at EDC, and others about working together to see if we can hire a grant writing company that has broad expertise in many areas that could, on a retainer basis, write grants for the county, for the towns, for the city, for the foundation, for the hospital, and others, depending on how that consortium is actually comprised. So is $200,000 the actual number? I put in as a placeholder, $100,000 a year for 2 years, which is as much as we could commit. And it's roughly what we had originally committed for 2 years, hiring our own individual that probably would not have any experience, and certainly not in a broad range where they could call on other people in the company to write this grant because it's a health department grant, or that grant because it's a justice department grant, or something else that's EMA related, or something else that's economic development, administration, and so on.
So are there companies that work on that basis of fee plus commission? So they would not waive their 7 or 8%, but they would take like a retainer plus commission?
Correct.
And they are that diversified that they would be able to
Some of them.
put on their justice hat, their health hat, and their,
And I don't know how, each company will have different strengths and weaknesses, but we would have to interview them and come up with what we thought was the best.
but
For
they
this
do
and this
work on retainer plus commission.
That is my understanding.
And
the commission may or may not be part of this. So if they write the grant and then they get the grant, there could be a different grant administrator, or it could be them that's paid a percentage of the grant proceeds. There's a number of ways to do that. I'm putting in a placeholder because I think after talking to some other folks that this might be the best approach to move us forward.
And this would be a consortium, you said, of like city, county, foundation,
Maybe
United Way,
others.
not-for-profits,
could be.
the
It's not-
arts, the symphony, the art
It's
museum, the,
not determined at this point who all would be in that consortium, but we're just starting discussions.
and this would all have to be spent by the end of 25?
Correct.
So it would be like the beta. It would be like
would be-
enough to get it kick-started.
Just like we talked about with hiring our own, the council made a commitment for 2 years. At the end of that time, we would expect that it would be paying for itself, and that's the same kind of thing
But
here.
no preliminary discussions have been had with such a consultant,
No.
such companies?
Nope, just with others who are interested in participating.
Okay, that would be a really interesting company to talk to, wouldn't it? I didn't realize there was such a diversified, that would be that. I mean, just county government alone is really.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, again, like with Brad's idea on home ownership, this is at its infancy and we need to move quickly.
Yeah, and I love down payment assistance. It's a real barrier to especially first-time home buyers, yeah.
Agreed. Okay, let's move on to roofs.
I have no problem with that, you know me, anything to,
Okay.
I wish we could get a sponsor, we could even put their name in the shingles, right?
Well, have at it.
Used to do that all the time out in barns.
I don't know that there's any shingles out there, but maybe there will be on the gazebo. Home ownership
Yeah,
program.
but I guess we've already talked about the secure ambulance.
Yep.
Yeah, that,
Is that really an ambulance or is that the sheriff?
we're just not calling it an armored personnel carrier.
Call it a Bearcat.
It's a
Or didn't the city of Richmond also put something like that in there,
That's sort of their business.
Yes.
two for the county, two within the county?
And
That's-
they're gonna be
that's-
making runs to Muncie all the time.
That is in here for discussion.
I think we,
Uh,
anyway. Animal control, I know the 50,000, the county's got in, the 50,000, the city's got in for a study.
correct.
I met with the veterinarian at Animal Care Alliance. Outstanding young veterinarian, she and her husband relocated here, he's a surgeon at Reed, and she's a really outstanding vet. She has done an exhaustive study of, I don't know if you've met her on the,
Dr. Stacy, yes,
Yeah.
many times.
and she has got a real head start on a study for shelters and that sort of thing. I really think we don't need to spend $100,000 on a study.
And if we
She's got a
don't, we
real-
won't.
I would hope that Richmond would agree. I know they wanted to go the route of the foundation and that sort of thing, and that got the whole shelter stuff failed. But I would hope that some of that $100,000 could go toward the building of a shelter that we so very much need.
Wow. That's what the study is for, to tell us if we very much need that. What do we very much need?
What
So,
we have now is not adequate, and I hope that we've gotten back to our current provider about the inadequacy of their response to our request.
ask them to come back. They haven't responded to our request. They haven't submitted anything yet except the cost of adding a few wire runs or
And they are still full.
so. Anyway, that's a separate issue from this,
I
obviously.
mean, we are, I'm just adding current personal documentation to the fact that we
I
need
understand.
a new shelter.
I understand. There are many people who have said that. What I'd like to see is a study that says not just that we need something, we need to expand, but
Have you been
What
to
do we
our
need to
current
do?
provider?
have
How recently?
last year.
Last year? Do you feel that is adequate to care for our animal control
See,
needs?
I think there's a difference between the county's needs to carry out their responsibilities under animal control and what animal enthusiasts, animal lovers want to have. So I'm not sure that's why I want to study. What do we actually need? What is the county's role? What's the county's responsibility? So what we have done has been pretty much the same for the last 10, 12, 15, 20 years. And so what do we need to do? It's going to require more investment, it seems to me. If we expand that operation, it's going to require more than just a building. It's going to require some way to staff a bigger building and And so what is that? I'd like to see a study, and that's why I support doing a study. I don't know whether it's gonna cost $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. That's what we're trying to figure out. So I think we'll get there in the relatively short term, and sometime this fall, we'll get the study done, and then we have a better handle on how to proceed from there.
Do you think we could build an adequate building for $250,000?
I don't know what's necessary, but I also don't think that it's the county's responsibility to take care of the whole thing. And so who else are the partners? Certainly the city of Richmond has some involvement. I would hazard a guess that they have far more animal control challenges than the county does. But I would like to see that documented.
There was a time when it was close to 50-50, but in recent years, as the drug community started getting so many pit bulls, it turned the corner and it became about 65-35 Richmond. And with the pit bull population, it was mostly pit bull population. County animal, I'm just talking dogs, cats are a whole different thing, but just dogs. You heard last week the number of dog bites, and in ops board this morning, the number of stray dogs. It is a serious problem. It's a quality of life issue for the county, countywide, not just Richmond. It is a very serious issue, and how we care for our animals, I think, says a lot about how.
So what number do you want to put in there?
Assuming that the entire 50,000 that we have for the study will not be available, I would like to see that doubled to 500,000, so that we could actually have, not as the veterinarian from ACA has made it clear, we need to solve this animal control issue in this county by having not just caring for the animals, but educating the people of Wayne County on how to care for their animals. And having an animal control center that also has an educational arm to it. And that, I think, is what will help get private donations. But if we have 500,000 and then can get a public-private partnership going for animal control. And that is assuming that the county donates the land, hopefully that 23 acres north of the fairgrounds.
Well,
Not the whole 23 acres.
exactly. I don't think we need 23 acres for that, but
I
at
think
any
maybe
rate,
5 acres
I'll
would be
pins-
enough for a parking lot
if
and a
there's no
dog run.
objection, I'll pencil in 250,000 to 500,000.
Sure.
It's
monopoly
to-
money at this point anyhow, so.
Exactly. So, okay.
Where did the 250 come from?
There it is. It's a placeholder. We haven't had any discussion, so there's a placeholder.
So you're adding another 250? What did you say?
I said 250 to 500,000.
Well, that's hard to
Well,
total out.
then just
Just
leave
add
it where
another
it's at.
250.
Just leave it where it's at, and we'll have the discussion tonight. We'll start the discussion.
So you don't agree with me on having a commissioner's point of view, having,
We
when
obviously,
they come to us and say, well, what do the
we obviously
commissioners think?
don't.
You're gonna say, we don't have a
There are gonna be
thought?
probably three different perspectives there. I wanna see the study. I wanna see what the study says we need to do.
Well, I want the commissioners to begin, to set forth on.
Well, as soon as we
starting
see a
with
I
myself.
thought we
study-
had a task force that we had already agreed to do that, and that's what we're doing. You're rehashing everything that the task force is already
Well,
working
I
on.
want to be a part of the animal control study, all right? I know you appointed this task force,
I
but
did
I
not.
want to be a
I did
part
not.
of the
It's
animal control study.
It's a task force that is sprung up from the community. So at any rate, I'll put in whatever number you want here, but it's just for discussion. We're talking about the ideas here much more than the numbers. Some of these are actual numbers. Your 500,000 is just a made up number, just as my 250,000 is. You have no idea
I
what it would
just-
cost.
Yes, I do, because
We
the
might as well
animal,
make it $1 million, cause we got a bid to build a shelter, it was $1 million.
well, no, but I've talked to many
But based
animal
on
people.
what,
We had no basis on it.
Exactly.
It was, here's
I've
the
talked to
plans,
other
build
counties-
this.
I've talked to other counties who use their ARPA money on animal shelters, and one was 800,000. Granted, Johnson County did spend over $1 million, but others have spent less than $1 million and done quite well.
okay, so let's see what the study for Wayne County says that Wayne County needs to do. The study may say we need to spend $2 million, I don't know.
Okay, but
This is just
I'm telling you right now,
this is
if I am not
placeholder.
a part of that study development, I must be a part of that study
It'll
development.
go on
because I'm so
Facebook and
involved.
everybody will know about it.
All right,
I'm not making a threat, I am just saying that I must be a part of that study development.
we'll see how it plays out. All right, anything else?
I wanna review what we've done, okay?
I have something to my Sears wish book. I wanna remember like when I was a little kid and went through the book. Christmas.
I just love those.
I
Yeah,
know.
Red Ryder
So
Ride.
since we're on that, I wanna add
Uh-huh.
a soccer sports complex partnership with YMCA, $500,000.
Sports complex.
I know Misty is,
Primarily soccer.
soccer's the main focus, but a general sports complex.
Like Westfield,
Yeah, used on their land, they,
Well, like one
Grand Park.
1/1000th of Westfield.
why,
Different, the old Reed locations.
That's about a $50 million complex. Maybe 100 million.
I think it's more like 100 million,
how much did you say?
$500,000.
500,000.
Expanding on what's out at the fairgrounds?
Don't know, again, it's money that we don't know.
You know, an old
idea.
Reed would sure give you a roll on a soccer goal.
Well, and the Y has, again, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, there's already things in place that,
I got no problem with putting that in for discussion.
that's all I have.
Anything else you wanna add?
Christmas
Mary
is over for me.
We aren't doing anything for the arts, but I think we're already over budget.
Okay, well, we'll retune this sheet, add it to the other 2 pages, and we'll have that ready for tonight to at least begin discussion. Okay,
anything you think of you need from me tonight other than that you've already got the joint ordinance?
yeah, I don't think so.
They're building my phone, just text me or call me.
Okay.
Can we finalize
Yeah.
the holidays?
First, I always tell people not to give me stuff and then they just keep doing it. Here, there's another payment that Linda just came in with. And this is for the health department to purchase medications. They have a line item for it, it's got money. It's $21,236.37.
Move for approval.
Second.
We don't know what it is, do we?
It's listed here, there's 3 different medications.
We have a COVID booster. Identify.
I don't know, do you know if there's Dovato, Tarvi, and
So those will be distributors, probably not.
Red.
Find out tomorrow.
Yeah, at the health board meeting. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve this. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And I'm looking for a place to sign that.
You don't have an arrow.
Yeah, it's signed by
We didn't touch
Christine.
Bobby's hands first, so we're lost.
Signed by Christine.
We sometimes just sign our 3 signatures at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Let's just do that then. Now, there's 2 others, it's actually 1 other, but there's two line items. You'll recall that we hired Baker Tilly for actually three different things. One is to help the county with our internal controls, and there's a separate team from Baker Tilly that's working on that. They've met with individual department heads and continue to work on that. There's another group that we hired to help us with ARPA issues, both reporting as well as helping define whether this project is lost revenue or restricted.
And procurement, and assistance with procurement compliance.
Correct. And then there's, that group is also working with the auditor's office, trying to help us get back registered in the SAM system for the federal government. They've been working on that for 2 months. It came down to yesterday, they reapplied, and the people they're working with in the federal government recommended, because they'd had problems with the name of our organization, which originally was Wayne, County of, and they wanted to change it to Wayne County Government. And then our address, 401 East Main Street, they say is used by others. I think it's also used by Wayne, County of is the problem. But so the federal government came back to them and said, reapply, but this time put your address down as 401 East Main Street, building number 2. Well,
No.
sorry, building number 2.
As
There's only-
what address?
It's 401 East Main Street, which
Building
is
number 2.
this address, but there's only one building
So
here.
which one's building number 2?
I don't
Where's
know.
building number 1?
So their response was, no, there's only one building here. It's 401 East Main Street. That was the resubmission, and they promised to act on that yet this week. So if all goes well, we'll be back in the SAM registration process. And if not, I don't know what the next step is, but Baker Tilly's working with the auditor's office on that. I know they've been on at least 2 phone calls with the feds, and continue to resubmit as we're directed or as we're allowed. So
How did we lose it to begin with? Just not reapply?
correct,
That was
you have to annually verify that
through the auditor's office.
correct.
Oh, good, it wasn't us.
No.
There's a renewal date.
There's a renewal every year, and the
Thought we
weird thing
didn't.
is the renewal date changes every year. So, well, because if you apply on April the 1st,
You're not gonna hear it.
then the renewal date for next year becomes April the 1st. So you don't want to wait until the last day, so now I apply on March 1st, and then the renewal date becomes March 1st. So it's a moving
Maybe it'd
target.
be easier to succeed from the state and then petition to reapply as a different county.
So anyway, we're still working on that, but be that as it may, my point here is we have a bill from Baker Tilly for assistance with ARPA and assistance with SAM. And so I'm feeling like we need to separate that into 2 categories, because the ARPA assistance, I think, can be spent out of ARPA money and the restricted money. But the SAM stuff, we probably just ought to pay out of our contractual
Yeah.
line item.
And that's gonna go away, it's gonna be much smaller.
So, well, it's it'd be about $1,500 a piece for each of those. But are you guys okay with putting $1,461.25 in ARPA, and then $1,547.58 out of the commissioner's contractual line item? Is that work?
We have enough, you think,
Yeah.
left in that, we haven't
Well,
spent much.
we may be a little bit short at the end of the year, but I think we'll be okay. It'll be close. And if we do, then we can ask for a transfer out of,
But at this point, we're not going in the red right now, right?
no.
Okay, move for approval for that.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Bobby, we're gonna be able to get this taken care of today.
Hopefully Sam will be an
I
ongoing.
hope
issue
I
for
hope
2
it's done
years.
this week, so we'll see. You wanna take a few minutes and talk about holiday schedule?
Before we do that, I'd like to address the request we had from the department head regarding us considering allowing a former employee who comes back on board as a new employee, full-time employee, to be allowed to pick up their vacation time earned where they left off when they left employment.
Yeah, if you wanna get into that, I'd like to get Kim in here to be part of the discussion, if you're okay.
Yeah, it's only 11:30, are we okay?
You okay?
Good to go till noon?
You wanna get her? Thank you, Steve.
And maybe she ought to be a part of the, maybe she wants to stay for holidays too, I don't know.
Yeah, could be. Thanks, Beth. So,
Just as a traveling music, as you're talking about Sam and all this linguistics that Sam gets into, I was listening to public radio out of Cincinnati, and there's a big brouhaha in Ohio right now over the naming of the Wayne National Forest. Native Americans are forcing Ohio to seriously consider changing that because Mad Anthony Wayne was not very kind to Native Americans. So it could very well be that after they finish with Ohio, that movement will move to Wayne County. So before you settle finally with Sam, you might be faced with the consideration of us changing our name. They are probably going to have to change.
seems unlikely, but we'll see. There's a lot of Wayne counties in the country, especially
I mean,
east of the Mississippi.
Detroit thinks they have trouble right now with their strike. Wait till they
Yeah,
have to
wait till they
change
get
all
into
their
Wayne
letterhead,
County.
yeah.
So, Mary Ann brought up the issue with the highway department of Mike wanting to rehire a person who is a former employee and reinstating their vacation time had been earned up to that point. You're familiar with this situation, I know, so do you wanna share your
I don't have
thoughts
it
on that?
exactly in front of me, but I did pull the personnel file. So this individual has actually left Wayne County government in 2019. So we're not talking 2 or 3 months. We're talking several years. This would put this employee pretty close to going to the next tier for another vacation. My recommendation is no, for the simple fact, we have a written policy. Once there is a break in service for any reason, they have to start a new seniority date, start with their PTOs and everything as a new employee, especially since 2019. So that's the question. Mike was pretty sure probably wouldn't go. He understands there is a written policy. That policy's been in place since 2009. And I would also be concerned, we would make an exception to our written policy when other people have suffered of returning back to work with new hire dates. Do not reinstate them. The only time we would reinstate an employee would be for an employee who has exhausted their FMLA of 12 weeks, and we may put them under an unpaid leave of absence, and they come back, that's a reasonable accommodation. And then also our health insurance, a little bit different scenario, but it allows for a 6-month reinstatement even on our benefits, all benefits that we would have. So this even exceeds that, so that
What
is
was
the
our
request.
policy prior to '09?
I can't tell you off the top of my
Okay.
head, I'm sorry.
Does anybody remember? Do
I
you
would say
remember,
we've
Steve?
never had a reinstatement.
I had a break in service. I was here from 88 to 2000, and then I went to Cambridge for 2 years, and then came back, and I started from scratch.
So that was prior to
2002.
So that was prior to 09. So that policy has been long-standing.
Yes, it has.
You started for county seniority,
I started over.
was your perf.
Well, perf carried over
Carried over.
because Cambridge was,
Right, well,
as was.
Perf is additive no matter how long you've been out.
That's correct.
Yes.
And to any organization that is in perf.
Yeah.
Correct. So, yeah.
But for county policy, it's separate.
So my rehire date in senior, or number of years started over in 2002.
I know he made the point that this could be a recruitment tool. How important has prior service been to recruiting in recent years, since recruiting has been challenged?
He has an opening coming up, it's a retirement. I think the person's been here.
But
I
in
mean,
general, with the
globally
county,
throughout
do we
county
get a lot
government.
of people coming back after they?
Is
A few, but mostly it's because the grass is not greener on the other side.
well,
Is why, but it has not been an issue at all, nor
Is our-
has it ever been requested.
Is there a time frame on our policy, or is it just say day from one day? If you leave tomorrow and come back the day after, you start over?
It does not, it's an unspoken, you leave, if we start processing a termination, we take you off payroll, that's it.
I mean, we might wanna look at modifying that policy, just because things have changed since 2009 on the employment a year is not unreasonable to look at. If somebody comes back within a year to,
Or even to follow what we have, even with the health insurance and all of that, it's pretty clear, it's 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
okay.
You don't, if you come back within 6 months, if we were to consider revising this, you wouldn't even have a waiting period for your health insurance. It would
Okay.
kick in.
That's something
in
that's
time.
Months is a
could help with
reasonable time.
recruitment and gives individuals that option if they, like you said, the grass isn't always green on their side, and if they realize that,
Mhm.
and maybe their position's still open and we haven't hired anybody for that
Correct.
person.
And I would think, 3 to 6 months, people jump to a new job and they know within that time period, if, man, I made a terrible mistake.
And this individual since 2019, I think
That's-
that's above and beyond reasonable to ask for that, but 6
I like
months.
6 months.
As-
Plus-
as Ron would say, it doesn't give me heartburn. If we were to do 6 months, cause we already have a portion in there at 6, I think that's extremely reasonable for this day and age.
And don't we always put on an individual's file whether they're eligible for rehire?
Yes, okay, so I'm not gonna get into this individual, but we always pull the files if they're eligible for rehire or not.
Okay, and this would only be eligible for those
Sure.
who are eligible for rehire
Absolutely.
at 6 months.
So what would be our typical process if we wanted to revise our personnel policy?
That would be revising it and bringing it to commissioners. I know that the entire handbook is signed off by council and commissioners.
I always thought that made sense since the separating a given part sometimes it isn't either or, it's both.
Mhm.
Bodies being involved, and I just think it makes good sense. I think there comes a point in time, maybe we need to take a whole look at it, and you had a committee doing that 5-6 years ago.
And it needs to be
COVID.
brought back because there's several changes out there that need to be put in writing in our policy, even though it's already a regulation, federal
And
regulation.
Again, you can't put a lot of stock in that do not rehire either. It's capable of being challenged. It's capable of being ignored if it's an elected official that has the right to hire their own people, even if they do not rehire.
Even if it's gross misconduct, you think, or,
I don't think,
because we have
it's
that
either do
on
not
there.
rehire or do not rehire, you know.
Because what we do, it's pretty lenient right now, but if it's progressive discipline issue, attendance issues and things like that, that's what we're kind of really looking at.
And it's well documented.
Mhm.
I like the 6 months because with our workforce getting younger and younger, you've hired a lot of younger people. We're going to have individuals who are taking maternity and paternity leave. And, you know, I think quite a few times the leave that they have is not long enough and they'll want to take 3, 4, 5 months.
And you know what, I appreciate you saying that, but when you start looking at our departments that are small, I'll use HR.
Yeah.
We're older, so that's not gonna happen to us, but
Right.
I'll use HR. If you were to allow that length of time for an individual to be off, you have a hardship for that department. You have smaller departments on this wing over here, that's a hardship. It's a
You're
hardship for
talking
the
about
sheriff.
20% or
Yeah, in the jail,
work staff.
they can't afford to have people off that long, so that's something that would really need some deep discussion.
Oh, I'm not saying that they have a right to be rehired. They would only be rehired if there was an opening.
Correct,
So,
but I thought you were talking about extra leave for,
no, I think she's
No,
talking
no, no,
about
I'm saying
They
state
maybe
to be
eligible
rehired
to be
and eligible
rehired
for their
and,
we're just talking about vacation time.
yeah, I
If they
understand,
return within 6 months.
Yeah. I
No,
understand,
if-
sorry, I misunderstood you.
No, I really like these, if they're rehired within 6 months, if there's a vacancy and they apply.
And it might help the sheriff's department and the
Yeah, I'm
jail, 'cause
thinking
the
the
grass isn't
COs
greener on the
yeah.
other side, they're already trained, bring them back.
Dispatch.
Yeah.
Yes. It
Highway.
happens.
okay, so, it almost sounded like you were at the point of bringing together a committee to incorporate all these changes. So do you wanna include this one as one of those changes to look at?
I think that's a good idea, cause we're looking at a parking policy too, so we've talked about some policy stuff, so I think we need to.
And we're gonna have an internal
Step that
control
up.
I think there's some
policy
work the
that we
committee
don't
has to
have.
do on some
Right.
tough issues like work from home,
Well, that's true too.
remote working in general.
Yeah, good point, Ron.
So there's quite a few, and I was saying also that internal control is gonna have to be incorporated in the handbook also when I get that
Sooner
recommendation.
than later, I would think.
Yeah, so go ahead and give us a timeline in the next week or two of, you know, how you wanna proceed with that and,
We had a committee and I'll work with Steve, it'll be a much smaller committee.
okay,
Last one's too big.
okay.
Would you thank Mike for calling this to our attention and let him know that we really have reconsidered our position on this?
We had a good discussion on it, so.
But our feeling is, I mean, is it okay to tell him that we're
Well, I
leaning
think-
towards 6 months and,
Yeah, and I think
but we really
we're
are,
we're not inclined to approve it in this particular case that he brought forward, but we are looking at maybe incorporating 6 months.
yeah, in fact, we did not approve
Policy.
the 4
Right.
years.
That's stretching it.
Okay,
He needs to know if he's rehiring this guy.
so, thank you, Kim. The other issue you just reminded me of is on parking. So Steve, as we complete the restriping and sealing of the parking lots, I would like for us before the end of the year to implement the new parking policy to assign people to lots and put it in place, so.
I got a few comments after our meeting with staff, but
I
did you
didn't
get any?
get any.
I got,
No, if anything, I got more positive
yeah,
response than
I
negative,
got 4 or
so.
5 and that was about the extent of it.
So anything, in particular that was.
A couple of them were the striping of the lot. They couldn't see the lines anymore. One of them was positive, they felt like some of their employees should be parking in the west lot over there. So, but for the most part, there really wasn't any negatives on it.
Okay. All right, well, let's get after that. Holidays. So Which ones can we agree on? Let me just start at the top. New Year's Day, yes. Martin Luther King's birthday, yes. Washington's birthday, do we really call it Washington's
It's
birthday,
President's
isn't it
Day, I thought.
President's Day?
Or Brad's
We
birthday.
call it President's Day, don't we?
Brad's
That's what I
birthday?
thought.
I like that one better.
Okay, Memorial Day, yes. Juneteenth, yes. Independence Day, yes. Labor Day, yes. Columbus Day,
No.
I think no. I know you made the case that that's the only one in October. But I really
I'm fine with it. If you guys wanna act
okay
that.
striking that one. Veterans Day, yes, November 11th. And then the question is on Christmas and Thanksgiving, the 29th, I guess, would be for 2024 is the Friday after
Day
Thanksgiving.
after Christmas and Christmas Eve, or
And
day after
then-
Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve are the two that.
Yeah, and so one of the things I was thinking,
You didn't say Good Friday. I'm willing to lose Good Friday
10, 11.
for Christmas Eve and
Good
Friday.
Friday is not, I'm looking at the federal holiday list, I'm sorry. that's
Oh,
why.
do you want our,
I think I've got it here. I've got it underneath here.
is
So,
that,
so Good Friday, I think there's a lot of people that would like to continue that.
that's 2022, 123.
Well, I don't need the dates, I just need to add what do you have for Good Friday for 24, do you have it? Do we know what?
Yeah,
day
you
it
need
is?
23 because of the way it falls. You need that. Do you have yours, Brad?
No, I don't.
I'll make
But
it.
I'm just gonna Google it right now. So we're looking for 24, right?
24 for Good Friday. Which is probably
March 29th.
March 29th.
March 29th of
Okay.
2024.
March
Handy
29.
little thing it might be.
And then the Friday after Thanksgiving. So that goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11. Christmas Day would be 12. And then, do you wanna go 13? Do you wanna go 12? If we went 13, we could either, for 24, we could either give a half a day of Christmas Eve and a half a day for the eclipse, or we could give the whole day for the 24th.
I say the 24th and don't worry about the eclipse.
I'm fine with that.
24th is
I scribbled all over.
Sunday.
It's the two, wow.
Oh, this is for next year.
This is for, yeah, for next year it would be a Tuesday. Yep.
It helps to know what day of the week some of those holidays are on.
So, yeah, so if we did,
It'd be 13 if we did.
okay, so,
Yeah, I say we lose Good Friday, Columbus Day from this list, brings it down to 12.
I suggested that we do not get rid of Good Friday.
yeah, and go to 13,
Go to 13,
which
really?
would be Tuesday and Wednesday
Well,
of
according-
Christmas.
So you guys, everybody gets off the day after Thanksgiving, so I don't wanna take it
No,
away if they've already added.
Federal holiday is called, for the day after Thanksgiving has been determined to be Lincoln's birthday.
What?
Lincoln's birthday? When is that?
Website. Just Google what are the federal holidays for 2023.
His real birthday is February 12th.
I kinda think so.
So they're just
So
determining.
they have the
that-
12th and the 19th?
Huh?
They have the 12th and the 19th?
Yeah, I'm not,
Of February? For
Sure,
Lincoln
what-
and Washington?
That's why they celebrate it
that's,
That's
on the
President's Day.
third Monday and call it President's Day.
Right.
this is USA Today.
like I said, I think working for government, you give up some things, so
And you
giving
get
them
some
an extra
things.
holiday is not
And so I'm okay
a
with that.
bad thing.
You're okay with
So-
13?
13.
Oh, I was caving into your
That's what-
conservatism before
Well,
I
I
had you.
really, yeah, you were. So, okay, so here's where we're at then. Monday, January 1st, Monday, January 15th, Monday, February 19th, Friday, March 29th, Monday, May 27th, Wednesday, June 19th, Thursday, July 4th, Monday, September 2nd, Monday, November 11th, Thursday and Friday, November 28th and 29th, and Tuesday and Wednesday, December 24th and 25th.
I love it.
Do I have a motion to approve that schedule?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve a total of 13 holidays for 2024 for Wayne County employees. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, there's our list. Anything else?
Conference in December.
Conference. So the Commissioners' Conference is the first week of December. If you're interested in going to that, get with Bobby and she can get you registered. It's in Indianapolis every year.
First week in December,
Yeah,
like
that's
December 4th.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think.
Starts in late December.
So I've got the postcard, I think, in my office, so I'll give you the dates, but if you're interested, let us know. And Bobby can get us registered. Next week is the AIC, and Mary Ann is going, I'm going for a couple of days. Are you going at all? Okay, so with two of us out, let's go ahead and cancel the meeting for next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday?
It's the 27th, yes,
Oh,
this month, September, next Wednesday.
That is
What?
unsafe building hearing day. Yes.
What's that?
I believe that might be the date of the unsafe building hearing out at, was it Crestview? Wasn't you?
What?
The unsafe building hearing that we had a few months back, that's the date of them to come back to answer if they've done anything to their property.
We can extend that.
Yeah, just
It's
extend it.
easier to reschedule.
You can check, make sure for you. You can extend it today.
Set a date.
Do we need to do that?
Yeah, it'd be,
Then we just go make sure
good to
that's.
set a date.
Okay. Okay.
Unless Brad, you wanna listen to them.
I don't, he can't make a decision by
Yeah.
You
himself,
couldn't make a
so-
decision, you could
I
listen
can
to them
make a
and
decision, you
report
guys may
back.
not agree with it, but.
Or you could make a
Or it may not be
decision.
legal.
It wouldn't be illegal, yes.
Or you can make a recommendation if they really, really wanna come twice. Or I guess you could listen to them and make a recommendation to us.
Works out perfect with me because I had some training I needed to get done that day.
Okay.
I was trying to see what our agenda was gonna be that day so I could get it scheduled. So now I'm freed up 5 days.
Really wanna find that consulting company that does.
There are a bunch of them. Do you want to recess until Steve gets back? Let's do that. We're back. All right, so what exactly do we need to do, Steve?
Yeah, the 27th was set as a continued time to check progress of an unsafe building that had been presented to you. And so in this case, I would suggest you just extend that for
Give them the next
Is this the fire one?
Yeah, Steve is gonna be the one that really monitored the progress.
Right. So it's,
So move that we extend it by 1 week. Is that sufficient to everybody's schedule? That would be,
So that would
That'd
be
be an afternoon meeting.
the first Wednesday in November. Or, no, in October. Yeah.
October 4th.
So October,
October 4th.
sounds
So
right.
at, we can do it first right out of the gate,
Yeah, 1:30.
1:30.
Yeah, let's
Make
do
that motion then.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, anything else? Joe, how'd it go? We all working?
Yeah.
Everything's good?
Yeah.
Good deal.
It was the best ever sound.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, we are adjourned.